Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for August 4th, 2021, according around 4 p.m. Eastern Time. A lot to talk about today as the Atlantic Basin is starting to wake up and a look at a few potential areas of tropical cyclone development over the next couple of days. So jumping straight into everything, taking a wide look across the tropical Atlantic this afternoon, we noticed that things are on the increase across the basin. Still have this pesky stalled frontal boundary that has been draped across portions of the Florida Peninsula over the last several days, and this is bringing a stretch of heavy rainfall, especially to the northern Florida Peninsula, where rainfall amounts have exceeded over about 5 inches over the last several days, and even portions of South Florida getting on that action as well. And then turning our attention out to the tropics, we are watching a tropical wave here, another tropical wave here, and old invest area 91L located somewhere about here. So we're watching 3 areas of disturbed weather, really 2 areas, as this wave right here, 91L, no longer really has a meaningful shot at development. We're watching this wave here, part of the monsoon trough. This will be lifting off towards kind of the north and west over the next several days, and this will be getting awfully close to the parts of the Lesser Antilles and then the Greater Antilles over the next 5 days or so, but only a small chance for development with that. The biggest chance will be with this wave that will be coming off of Africa tonight, and this wave will be entering into the Atlantic waters tonight into early tomorrow morning. This is when development chances will perk up on what will likely be invest area 92L. We can take a look at everything here on the graphic tropical weather outlook from the National Hurricane Center. Again, this area of disturbed weather right here, only a 20% chance. Again, it's just a very small tropical wave lifting out of the monsoon trough, and it will be in the Lesser Antilles within the next 4 to 5 days or so. Again, heavy rainfall, some gusty winds, maybe the potential for a few mudslides in there. But again, the overarching thing is that this is not going to really be a big deal at all. No real meaningful shot at development from this. The basin is still kind of quiet for the most part. The Madden-Julian oscillation is just not here yet. The parameters are shaping up, but it's not quite there yet for the systems out here to get going. Then we have another wave. Again, this one will likely be 92L with a 40% chance of development. This by far is likely going to be the wave to monitor over the next several days. Anything that will try to develop will probably start kind of moving off towards the west and eventually kind of northwest like so. This will likely not really have much of a shot to get strong out there in the tropical Atlantic. We'll kind of take a look at everything and why that is here in a moment. Again, looking at the satellite image here, this is the infrared satellite from tropicaltidbits.com. We can very clearly see we have invest area 91L located here, devoid of any convection now at the moment. We have this tropical wave here and this big tropical wave, this big, large clump of energy that is now moving or getting ready to move off the coast of Africa. And again, this will be in the Atlantic tonight. This will be in the Atlantic tonight. We also have another tropical wave coming off that will be coming off in the next couple of days. So all of this being said, the Atlantic is starting to really juice up here. And one of the main reasons for that is that we have an enhanced phase of the Kelvin wave that has passed over Africa, and the secondary surge of the Kelvin wave is now over the Western Atlantic, and this will be surging eastward over the next couple of days, and this will be then kind of prolonged over this area, which should help to promote a lot of upward moving air in the atmosphere, and this should also go to enhance the overall window of favorability across the tropical Atlantic for the time being. Now, the one thing that is going against any tropical development, at least in the short term out across here, we look here at the Madden-Julian oscillation. Again, this is updated as of today. And like we've been talking about, MJOs are a longer duration event, and they have more of a say in the interseasonal phase of hurricane seasons. And in this case, we have a lot of the activity over the Eastern Pacific right now. That's why we've had a very dominant Eastern Pacific over the last couple of weeks now. Not really seeing a lot of strong systems. The last strong system actually was Felicia out there. And the other storms that we thought were going to get going really struggled to get going. And that's just kind of a component of the less than favorable conditions out there, the cooler sea surface temperatures out across that region. But once we start getting into the latter part here of August, really mid to late August, the Mount Oscillation begins to switch over into the Atlantic Basin, and this is when things will really start to perk up across the area. And all of the signs are starting to become present that we're going to be dealing with a very busy second half of August and into September and October. And that is really well reflected in the NOAA outlook from today, continuing with about 15 to 21 named storms, 6 to 10 hurricanes, 3 to 5 majors. And that's because, again, this Mount Julian Oscillation will be sitting then over Africa within the next couple of weeks and promoting a lot of upward moving air as these MJO pulses do. And this is when things will really get going. So for the time being, we can look out there. This is the 850 millibar vorticity map. Again, the spin in the atmosphere at about 5,000 feet off the ground. For context here, these reds and whites, that's your high cyclonic spin at your 5,000 foot level. And again, what we've really begun to see here is, again, this lobe of energy here off the Cabo Verde Islands. That right there is the remnant vorticity of Invest Area 91L. This is the monsoon trough that is located in here. And what we're going to be watching is this piece of energy right here off the monsoon trough to split and then move northwestward towards the Lesser Antilles over the next couple of days. And this is going to be what we're going to have to watch. Again, development chances in the western part of the Atlantic Basin right now are not particularly high. And again, that's just a reflection of the background state still. We still have a lot of upward moving air across the tropical Pacific. Still a little bit of vertical shear that's being displaced into the Atlantic Basin, although it is lower than average. But again, there's still some shear in that area. We also noticed the stalled frontal boundary across parts of northern and central Florida, bringing a lot of rainfall, and this will continue to be the case for the next several days or so. And the other thing going against tropical waves right now, especially near the Cabo Verde Islands, we look here, this is the upper ocean heat content map updated as of this morning. Again, for context on this scale, the lighter blue colors onwards towards the right of the scale, the warmer the colors get, the higher upper ocean heat content you have, and the more energy that is reflected in the waters and the latent heat release potential in the atmosphere. Again, where we see those numbers the highest is in the western part of the Atlantic in the Gulf of Mexico. That is very typical for this time of the year. And again, if something comes along to take advantage of it, it's a big deal. So these numbers right now, while they don't mean especially a lot, they will mean a lot if something comes along and tries to take advantage of that. And certainly where these tropical waves are trying to develop at the moment, we notice that we have an area of just slightly present upper ocean heat content values right now. But really the greatest values are sitting roughly at about 10 degrees north latitude. And again, anywhere from about 10 degrees, maybe even closer towards 11, 12 degrees north would support tropical cyclone genesis. The water temperatures, this time of the year, especially near the Cabo Verde Islands, are still not really that particularly warm. But this is, the values here are measuring the 26-degree isotherm. So this is basically a 26 degrees Celsius or about 79.9 degree Fahrenheit water temperature. And that is just on the marginal side of being conducive that's the minimal requirement for tropical cyclones to take advantage of that and actually go on to develop. So the water temperatures are now starting to reflect in there and getting warmer at depth. So that is certainly something that is favorable, at least marginally so, but especially so south of about 10 degrees. And then once you get west of about 55 degrees, this is right here at about 50 degrees west. Once you start getting past about 50 west and about south of really about 20 north, you start to really pick up the energy that is really conducive for tropical cyclones at that particular time. So here's a look at the GFS forecast. This is the 12Z run value for 2 p.m. this afternoon. Again, the darker reds here, this is higher cyclonic spin at 5,000 feet. And we notice the remnant vorticity here associated with Invest Area 91L. Again, pretty much just a dead wave at this point. Now, this will be forced westward, but it's already at high latitude, and development chances will likely not increase with this. In fact, they will likely decrease as cooler sea surface temperatures and just general unfavorable conditions exist across that area. But again, it's being steered by this ridge of high pressure, part of the Bermuda Azores High. The Bermuda part here, the Azore Island part right there. And again, these tropical waves are just getting sent westward underneath this ridge. So we can kind of continue to move forward. Now, this is the tropical wave that the GFS is kind of picking up on right here. And again, this rolls off of Africa within the next about 24 hours or so. By early tomorrow morning, this tropical wave should be just along the coastline or just offshore at that point. And then really development chances begin to start to increase here. We noticed that again, development chances have been kind of off and on with this. The 12Z run here of the GFS was a little bit more of this monsoon trough type feature. You can kind of see this large envelope of energy. And what ends up happening is the northern lobe actually gets kicked further northward. And it has increased in development chances, though. You can see that one little area just for a brief time tries to kind of close off, and that energy is existent in that region. But this overall piece of energy will be moving westward, but because it's large size, it's going to have a tough time developing. And if we look here at a vortex average sounding across this environment, because it's a very big wave, it encompasses a very broad area. And there's a couple of important things that we're looking here for. First of all, we have pretty uniform wind flow across the environment, but we do have stronger winds in the upper part of the atmosphere. So it is creating just a little bit of speed shear. But the one thing is we have some very dry air just above the surface. And we can also see that we have a pretty strong capping inversion. Basically, when the parcel is trying to rise here at the atmosphere, when a parcel is trying to rise, the ambient air around that, surrounding that parcel is warmer. The parcel kind of can't rise anymore, and it creates kind of the strato deck. And what that kind of represents is that we have a capping inversion. That's a pretty strong cap there, which would not really allow for deep convection to develop in the top part of the atmosphere. We also have some very dry air aloft, and this dry air with any thunderstorm that would go up gets easily transported down to the surface. And with that being said, you get a lot of outflow dominant storms and storms that just can't create a sustainable environment. So you get a pulsing type development set up there, not really conducive for tropical cyclone development at all. Now, if we jump here to the GFS forecast, we look at the 200 millibar wind. Again, we do have a little bit of a favorable wind pattern. It does try to establish a little bit of a poleward outflow channel at that point. So it may be able to generate just enough outflow. But if we look here at the 700 to 400 millibar relative humidity product, what we'll notice is, again, right now, it envelops itself within a moderate pocket of moisture, but then that wave begins to really fall apart. And eventually this dry air gets entrained around the circulation, and that is what will probably then shut off development chances after that point. And again, nothing really here on the GFS. Now, the one thing that I will use for caution here on the GFS forecast is we look here. This is the GFS out to hour 180 by Thursday. Here we are. This is Thursday, August 12th. And again, here we are with a 976 millibar low near the California, kind of really off the Baja Peninsula and off the Mexican coastline in the Eastern Pacific. Now, the GFS does have a problem with really with kind of transferring the energy from the Eastern Pacific to the Atlantic. Now, this could be one of the reasons why the GFS is struggling with development, and all the models really are. But even for what it's worth, the euro, again, and the euro has had its busts and it's had its moments where it's done really well. But even the euro doesn't really develop this system. It develops a very broad circulation that is very broad. It's not well organized, and just kind of gets carried away, and then probably on out to sea it would go. In this particular run, and kind of see some remnant energy there approaching the Bahamas by Friday, August 13th. But other than that, we're not really watching for development really quite yet. The time is just not really there. If we look here on the ensembles and the GFS ensembles, and we'll look here at the ensemble mean sea level pressure, again, we notice that if we kind of back this up and we go out just about 5 days, we notice that there is some clustering for a storm in this region, but eventually even that gets carried northward. Again, the ridge of high pressure kind of backs off here. We have some troughiness over here, and this troughiness would allow this to kind of steer around that ridge. if anything were to develop. But again, this is really far out in time. So again, speculation is not really my point of preface at this time. But it goes to show that yes, there could be something in this area beyond 5 days or so. Actually, within 5 days, it is possible. And even before then, there is some model support for this to be occurring there. So it is worth monitoring. But again, I'm not really thoroughly impressed of this by the moment. And we'll just continue to see, especially once the wave comes off of Africa. We've had this time and time again where models really pick up on a wave over Africa. Once it hits the water, it drops development and nothing more comes of it. So we might be in one of those situations, but it's going to be a time game right now. So time is on our side, and we are going to be several days away from any land impacts, if any, several days away, a week plus, really. So we'll be fine. At this point, there is no real threat for land impacts over the next 5 days. So with that being said, hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Michael O'Malley. I'll talk to you guys again some more tomorrow.